The deck moans under each swell. Salt needles the eyes. Iron hangs on the tongue. Boots slide on wet planks. Men move like shadows who learn to hold their breath. Over them, a shape keeps time with their fear. Slow steps, a beard laced with slow-burning fuses, eyes that weigh every tremor, every twitch. They call him Blackbeard. Serving under him isn't living. It's measuring yourself against fear. On this ship, fear is oxygen. It keeps men breathing. It can also set them on fire. This isn't a tale of treasure. It's an autopsy of control. How one man turned a hull into a kingdom of discipline and dread. We descend through the decks of the Queen Anne's Revenge, where order is carved by gunfire and loyalty is bought in rum and consequence. From the Caribbean's chaos to the storm that took him, we track how Edward Teach built power and why no one aboard could truly leave it alive. Before the name is spoken, the hush arrives. Merchantmen sag their colors when a dark outline swells on the horizon. The sea itself seems to hesitate, a skin shivering under the weight of new sails. That is how Blackbeard enters stories, not with thunder, by taking sound away. Rumor runs faster than wind. Some swear his ship slides from fog, lanterns doused, boarding at the seam between dream and daybreak. Survivors, few as they are, say the same thing. He could have killed us. He chose not to. They call it mercy, but mercy here is a message. You are spared to speak. The legend grows teeth, the ship groans like something alive. Salt swells the planks. Nails sing under strain. 100 men share one pulse. Queen Anne's Revenge is less a vessel than a system. Smoke, rumor, steel. Cannons crouch along the gun deck like chained beasts. Hammocks sway over powder crates. Tar and sweat sour the air, the same smell that clings to the man at its center. His footsteps carry gravity, slow, deliberate. No one holds his gaze. Above, a black flag snaps in the wind. The meaning is not in the art, but in the rule. Symbols aboard remind every man what forgetting costs. This ship doesn't sail on wind or faith. It sails on fear. That fuel burns hot. It leaves powder everywhere. Night thickens. The men gather. He braids slow fuses into his beard and sets them smoldering. Sparks creep like ants through black hair. He steps into lantern light and becomes more than a man, an instruction. Smoke veils his eyes. Fire sketches the bones of his face. He speaks little. He doesn't need to. If a captain burns himself and smiles, what can he do to you? Performed violence becomes policy. Most fights finish before the first shot. Terror is a hunger. Once fed, it asks for more. Below, lantern light barely cuts the dark. Boards shine with brine and spilled rum. The code is simple. Equal shares in plunder. Unequal power in command. Speak against the captain and the sea counts you among its ghosts. Meals feel like ceremonies of survival. Hardtack, salted pork, grog thick enough to bend time. Laughter arrives in short eruptions and dies quickly. Yet they obey for more than fear. The system works. Hunger is kept in check. Justice, pirate justice, is swift. Pay is predictable, until the code is bent. Picture the ritual. Dice rattling in a tin cup to settle a quarrel. A knife scoring a tally into a mast so all can see. Cruelty becomes structure. Terror passes for fairness. Order born from chaos, clung to because the alternative is madness. But in kingdoms built on fear, loyalty rots fast. Someone will test how far the mast can take knife marks before it splits. The night holds only timber and breath. Israel Hands, quartermaster and sure shot, watches the black seam of horizon. He has fought beside Blackbeard. Killed for him. Bled for him. Footsteps. Fuse smoke sketches a silhouette. A pistol lifts. A click. A flash. Hands drops, clutching his knee. Blood spreads like oil. The pistol lowers almost gently. If I don't kill one now and then, they forget who I am. He walks away. The men are quiet, not from the noise, but from the truth inside it. Fear keeps order. It also breaks the spine meant to hold that order up. At dawn, a longboat ghosts toward a merchantman that is hove to without a fight. Oars bite, water whispers. 2 men carry a coil of line. One carries a boarding axe. Blackbeard does not shout, he points. The line hisses across, bites, holds. A sailor on the other deck freezes with a belaying pin halfway raised. Blackbeard steps across the gap as if crossing a threshold in a house he owns. No flourish. One cut to the rope that keeps the helm lashed. One nod to the gunner. The crew drop their tools like their heart. He takes charts, medicines, a barrel of flour, a little rum. He leaves the men shaking and alive. You'll tell them, he says to no one in particular. He knows the story will travel faster than his sails. Between watches, fear is managed like rope, coiled, stowed, paid out when needed. A boy wipes the blade of a cutlass with salted cloth. A cook knocks weevils from biscuit with the back of a spoon. A boatswain checks the cat-o'-nine-tails for wear. He is not polishing cruelty. He is polishing procedure. Order here is a set of practiced hands. The crew learn where not to look, when not to speak, how to nod once and be done. Even kindness is rationed. A spare mouthful of water passed along the line can feel like treason. The ship's theater is not only for enemies. It is for the crew. He walks the deck at dusk and snuffs a lantern with wet fingers. Darkness rushes in, fast and total. Hear how the sea speaks without us, he says. Or perhaps he lets silence say it. Men feel their heartbeats in their teeth. The lesson lands deeper than any speech. Light is a privilege he can take. Punishment is public, but not always bloody. A man shortens his watch by 15 minutes and is made to stand with a musket held out at arm's length until sweat drips from his chin and his shoulders shake. Another pockets a length of fuse. He is set to scrub the bilge with brine until his hands crack. The crew watch. They measure the cost. No one argues when the shares are counted later. It is easier to fear a ledger than a whip. Dawn leaks over the Carolina coast. The harbor lies still, yet every hull in sight answers to him. He blockades a colony not for gold, not for jewels, for medicine. The governor's men panic. Trade stops. Doors bolt. Days grind into weeks. No cannon, no blood. Only waiting. Then a note. Deliver a chest of medicine and we lift the noose. The deal holds. The ships vanish the way they came. Admirals in London here. Dockside whispers multiply. Madness, some say, to seize a town for pills. To him it's math. Terror can bargain where law cannot. But when terror works too well, no one follows. Everyone scatters. Power isolates itself. On long windless days, the ship becomes a school. He teaches with examples. A prize appears, fat, slow, nervous. He orders no shot. Instead, he has the drummer beat a march as if troops were boarding. He has men shout from below decks, so the sound doubles their number. He walks the rail with a slow grin and a smoking beard. The other captain drops his sword over the side and sobs. Blackbeard does not laugh. He doesn't need to. The crew learn that noise can be a weapon. They also learn that it costs nothing. Superstition grows like mold in damp corners. A coil of rope left unknotted is blamed for a squall. A gull that will not land is a death notice. The men whisper about lights that move underwater, souls of those who fed the sea. Blackbeard uses this, but he does not mock it. He lets fear wear whatever mask keeps it alive. If a charm on a wrist makes a man row harder, the charm stands. If a story about a ghost keeps hands off a powder keg, the ghost is as good as a guard. Carolina heat clings like tar. The Queen Anne's Revenge edges too close to the bars of Beaufort Inlet. The hull shudders, then stops. Men run to lighten her, guns, barrels, coin. The tide says no. The ship is dying. Some call it accident. Others whisper design. Blackbeard takes a fortune and a hand-picked few and slips inland. The rest watch their home and prison settle into the tide. Did the devil go ashore for a pardon? Something has shifted. A myth built on unbroken motion meets sand. A captain without a deck is a story without breath. He wears a pardon like a borrowed coat and tests the feel of shore. Men like him don't vanish. They change angles. Taverns fill with witnesses who saw him drink, laugh, plan, disappear. Letters pass between governors and commodores, nervous and polite. The sea waits. Fear looks for a new spine to climb. He returns to water the way a blade returns to a whetstone, out of need. New hull, fewer guns, leaner crew. Leaner doesn't mean softer. He trims waste the way a cook trims fat. Men who step wrong are gone by sundown, with coin or without. He listens more. He smiles less. The theater shrinks, becomes particular. A fuse in the beard only when it matters. A story dropped in a tavern at just the right ear. A promise to a pilot who knows the shoals like prayer. Control, tightened, November, 1718. Sky, the color of iron. Two royal sloops feel their way through the shallows, sails ghosting in low fog. Beyond the sandbar, Blackbeard waits, beard smoking, pistols ready, cutlass wet with rain. The jaw sets. The trap snaps, cannon, splinters, men slam into railings. He doesn't flinch. He roars and drives forward as if the myth itself were watching. Some say 5 bullets and 20 cuts mark him before he falls. The body drops. The mouth keeps a shape like a dare. Lieutenant Maynard has the head hoisted from the bowsprit, proof the devil can die. The sloops turn home. The wind combs the rigging. The wake carries a whisper. The water goes still again, but it isn't peace. It's exhaustion. Queen Anne's revenge sleeps under sand, her bones salted thin. Survivors scatter, some pardoned, some hanged, all altered. Years later, sailors swear they see drifting embers off the Carolina coast. His embers, they say. Death ended the body, not the method. The warning hardens. Never serve a man who makes fear his god. And yet the shore wears fear too, just cleaner coats and quieter guns. Men who knew him keep habits they cannot name. A boatswain on a sugar ship snaps his lantern closed each time he senses an argument. A pilot, old now, refuses to lash the helm. He remembers a hand cutting that rope and taking a ship with it. A cook salts meat by counting to 13 because that was the number of men who walked away from a prize without a blow. Tiny rituals, clutched like charms. Fear once learned does not leave. It changes rooms. Edward Teach leaves no treasure map, no air. He leaves a mechanism. Fear can build command fast. It can also eat the hands that feed it. Use terror to start an engine and it will want more fuel. If the captain can burn himself and smile, the crew will stop believing anyone is safe, including him. The thing that holds them together becomes the crack that lets the sea in. What remains on shore is quieter, but not kinder. Governors sign papers that starve whole towns. Investors move ships on ledges the way captains move men on decks. Orders cross oceans and arrive with a seal instead of a pistol. The air smells different, ink, tallow, starch, but the rule tastes the same. Obey or be ground thin. The difference is costume. The cost is constant. The waves close over his story, but not its silence. The coast hums with what fear arranged. Gun smoke in memory, a rulebook written in scars, a strange order left behind. Blackbeard was not only a man. He was a language the sea invented to show how thin the line is between command and collapse. When his flag fell, something rare surfaced beneath it. A rough brotherhood trying to live without kings, courts, or mercy. They passed a bottle instead of a law. They voted with knives in their belts and calloused hands on the rail. Freedom felt like wind at the back and salt on the lip. It also had a bill. On some nights, a light moves where no light should. A single glow, low on the water, steady as a heartbeat. Fishermen lift their heads and make the sign they trust. A child asks what it is. The old man says, "A fuse going out." He doesn't say whose. He doesn't need to. The story is the point, not the proof. Stories steer men away from reefs. Stories keep powder dry. Stories remind a deck what it costs to forget. If you listen close on a calm morning, you can hear rope talk, fibers clicking inside the twist as they settle. You can hear a hull answer the push of a tide with a long, tired breath. You can hear a man swallow when his name is called for the wrong task. That swallow is the sound Blackbeard loved, not the scream. The swallow. The moment a choice shrinks to one door. He built a house of one-door rooms and made men grateful to walk through. There is a way to rule by fear that almost looks like fairness. You pay on time. You punish predictably. You share enough to quiet the stomach, but never enough to quiet the mind. You give men a cause that isn't yours, then make yourself the only bridge to it. Break the bridge and they drown. Keep it and they carry you. It works. Until the water rises faster than your bridges can be built. He knew how to vanish in plain sight. A hat pulled low, a coat turned inside out, a name said soft, then swallowed. He could sit at a table with 3 enemies and make each believe he was the friend they lacked. He didn't change his story. He changed theirs. That is another kind of fear. Losing the sentence you tell yourself about who you are. A last thought before we leave him to the tide. There is a kind of courage that looks like obedience from far away. A man steps when told to step because the step is better than the fall. He tells himself he is brave for choosing the step. Maybe he is. Maybe courage isn't a banner. Maybe it's a thin, stubborn line held in a corner of the mouth when orders bruise. Blackbeard measured men by how much of that line they kept. He broke it often. Sometimes he admired it as he broke it. That was his contradiction. That was his art. If you stand on the beach at Ocracoke when the wind is wrong, sand stings the ankles and the sound comes sideways. The tide pulls harder than it should. The water looks ordinary. It isn't. It carries a grammar left by men who wrote with powder and tar. It says, "Command built by fear moves fast." It also strips paint, eats rope, hollows beams. Keep using it and the ship will glitter, then give. The sea owns the bill. It always did. We step off the deck now, but not off the question. What happens when fear tries to run a city, not a ship? When the vote sits next to the knife? When a crew calls itself a republic and believes it? Nassau will answer. A harbor of sand and rumor. A council that smells like smoke and salt. A dream that could not pay its tab. The next chapter waits where shallow water meets deeper debt.